Hey, what's going on, you guys? MMA fans all across the world. It's your boy, Afro Man, aka MMA Genius, aka MMA Blaze, whatever you see fit to call me. Just make sure you mention me with MMA in it, you dig? But anyways, excuse me, there, man. Got some hair in my face. Nah, man. I just want to give my predictions for UFC 120. Dan Hardy versus Carlos Condit. Carlos Condit versus Dan Hardy. Whatever. Got one of my favorite fighters on this card, man. Dan Hardy. Well, Michael Bisping. I like him too. Used to hate him, but I'm getting to like him more and more. You know what I'm saying? I like that fighter attitude he has. Despite of everybody thinking he was just a dick and all that shit, but a little bitch, like Dan Henderson said. But he's actually he's actually a pretty cool guy, man. He just, he's got that fighter spirit, so you gotta respect that. But yeah, man, we got Akiyama. He's gonna Dan Hill's gonna be fighting Akiyama, and I'm just gonna give my thoughts about Dan Hardy, versus Carlos Condit, and Michael Bisping versus Akiyama. The question is, who do you think is gonna win? So leave your comments and let me know if you disagree with me. But I know who I think is gonna win this thing. But of course, anything can happen. It is MMA, so don't blink. Now, something I want to say, even though Hardy is my favorite fighter, there's a lot of stuff people are getting confused here. They're getting heart confused with skill. And Dan Hardy definitely has a lot of heart. But until we see somebody that can get Dan Hardy in a proper submission, like we all heard GSP say that, he was doing the technique wrong when he had Dan Hardy in the armbar. And all kind of other things. He said maybe if he would have got the technique right, Dan Hardy would have tapped or he would have gotten out of it. But George St. Pierre isn't the greatest jiu-jitsu artist in the world. But if Dan Hardy had fought somebody, with great submissions and who knows how to do the technique properly, maybe he would have tapped. So we know he has a big heart, but how big really, is his heart? But I'm not going to question it. I think it's pretty damn big. Because like they say, Dan Hardy is almost like a rubber man right now. You know what I'm saying? He's so. He's real flexible, like George St. Pierre said. So, I don't think that Dan Hardy has a lot of skill. I think he's a bit overrated, even though, yeah, Dan Hardy is one of my favorite fighters. I just like him overall as a person, and I like his fighter attitude, and I like how he's not turning the fight down. He's taking whoever they give to him. So I respect a fighter for that. But I'm not going to go far, in giving him so much respect to say he's going to go through there and just run through Carlos Condit. You got to give him some respect. I mean, don't get me wrong. Condit is not. He's all right to me. He's a great fighter. I'm not gonna say he's great, but he's a good fighter. And some people say that he's not the same fighter he used to be when he was in the WEC. But I don't know. I don't know him that far back. I just started knowing the guy when he came to the UFC. And like I'm saying, Condit. He has a great chance in this fight as well as Hardy. I don't think anybody's going to run through anybody. I do think Hardy's going to pull off a decision, but I think Hardy's going to take Condit down. And really, a lot of people are counting on this just being an all-out slugfest. Yeah, I do believe it's going to be a slugfest in some areas, but just an all-around go in there, beat you down type fight. I think both of these guys really want to win. I think Condit wants to prove that he's one of the best, and for some strange reason, since Dan Hardy got pretty much got beat up by GSP. Everybody, and he didn't tap or he didn't give up. Everybody thinks he's one of the best. So Condit, he's a big name now. In fact, GSP really gave him a lot of exposure, and Condit wants to beat him. Beat a guy who fought the world champ, and that's what Condit wants to do. So my guess, what I think Condit's going to go in and do, he's gonna fight Dan Hardy in the place that he thinks he's weakest. Vulnerable to submissions. I think Dan Hardy, his submission defense isn't all that well. Even though he didn't tap, he still got caught in submissions. You see what I'm saying? GSP wasn't able to, fully go all the way through with it, but he still got caught. So, Condit, I heard he's pretty slick on the ground. I don't know if he's great, but I heard he's pretty slick on the ground. I mean, let's just be honest. How much could you possibly learn in the, short amount of time that Dan Hardy's been off? He could obviously learn a lot. You could tell he even learned a little bit from Matt Serra in that short amount of time. So I think Dan Hardy is going to learn a lot of submission defense. But Condit, he's over there with Greg Jackson. You know what I'm saying? And those guys, they know how to win. They don't have the most exciting style of fighting, exciting style of fighting, but they know how to win, and they're gonna go in. I guarantee they're gonna go in with a great plan. They're gonna try to submit Hardy due to guillotine or either armbar or who else? Rear naked choke. Either one of those, I can see it happening. Just put it like this: instead of me going through all that, just say submission, because he could very well catch Hardy in a triangle. Hardy, he unless Hardy is well aware of just not going in with just one straight mind, knowing that Condit it's going, just think that he's going to go in there and try to make it a slugfest, and and try to just have one of those fight of the night type fights. If Hardy goes in there with the right mindset and use wrestling, because Hardy is a strong guy. Like I say, it's just that he didn't have great technique. In some areas, his hands are pretty good. His boxing is pretty good. If you ask me, he has a nice form of boxing. But I will say this: Dan Hardy's a little slow in my eyesight. If he was a little faster, he could have let the gun sling. When he fought GSP, he didn't even throw one punch. So Dan Hardy's a bit slow. I kind of noticed that, but he's still a good fighter. He's still a good striker, and I think this is going to be a slugfest at some point in the fight. But I think it's going to be a controlled slugfest. These guys are going to go in. It's going to be a great fight. I don't see this being a boring fight at all. I see Dan Hardy mixing it up with some takedowns, taking Condit down. I see Condit constantly going for the submission, just all the time, just constantly going for the submission. And hell, who knows? Dan Hardy could even submit Carlos Condit. He could choke him out. I see him, taking Condit down and choking him out. Or if not, pressing him up against the fence. Landing some big shots, some big elbows. These guys kicking the shit out of each other. Constantly just, landing strikes on each other, but Hardy just being the stronger guy and being able to take Condit down, I'm not going to say it will, but he's going to be able to get Condit down a lot more than Condit will be able to get him down. At least that's what I'm thinking. Either way, it's a good fight, good matchup. I was excited about this fight, and this fight will really show at Dan Hardy if he really has what it takes to keep growing as a fighter and eventually get a rematch with Georges St. Pierre. So I just want to see what Dan Hardy has learned, and I'm rooting for him. Hey, man, one of my favorite fighters, and I wish you the best of luck, and I wish Condit luck as well. But if Dan Hardy goes in there and he doesn't fight smart, he's going to get submitted. That's all I can tell you. He's going to get caught in a submission, and this time he will tap, or he will go to sleep, or he will have his bones broken. Believe that. But overall, though, man, if he goes in there and fight smart, like I said plenty of times, he should be able to get a decision against Condit. I don't see him knocking Condit out. Dan Hardy, his knockout power is way overrated. He knocked out Roy Merkham. Roy Merkham has a glass jaw, if you ask me. Nate Diaz knocked his ass out. You know what I'm saying? Nate Diaz is a hell of a fighter, a great fighter, but he doesn't really have the hardest punches in the world. They irritate you and they sting and they hurt, but you get knocked out by a guy like, just normally and naturally, a lightweight, you know what I'm saying? It lets me know you got a glass jaw, man. And, so, hey, that's just my opinion on this, my take on it. And Hardy, he does punch fairly hard, but he doesn't punch as hard as everybody try to make it seem. So I don't see him knocking Condit out. I see them beating each other up pretty bad. I see Hardy getting the better in the exchanges, but like I say, overall, I see him just overall getting more takedowns than Condit and pulling off the decision. So moving on. Dan Hardy versus Akiyama. Now, Akiyama is a good fighter, but Akiyama lacks certain things. Akiyama to me, doesn't have that killer instinct to where he knows how to go in there and just finish a fighter off, and his cardio is a bit questionable. He has good cardio, but does he have great cardio? Now, Michael Bisping, his cardio is fairly well. It's pretty good. I think he's going to come in shape. Michael Bisping doesn't really have any punching power. He's been trying to develop that. I think Akiyama has punching power. He just doesn't know how to go about using it. And which I could be wrong. He could have knocked some people out in his past fights. I just don't know. But from what I see from when he fought, I forgot the guy's name. I'm not gonna spend all day trying to guess it though. His first fight in the UFC, Alan Belcher. That fight could have went either way, but he didn't knock him out. He didn't knock Chris Leben out. Chris Leben has a very good jaw. The only guy that ever knocked him out was the pound for pound greatest fighter in the world, Anderson Silva. So Akiyama's a hell of a fighter to me, and this fight can really go either way. You can't count either guy out. I really believe that Akiyama has the edge in this fight, But Michael Bisping, he doesn't have the greatest ground game in the world, but it's not non-existent. You know, like some of the UK guys. You know, which they say UK guys don't really have ground games, um, or they don't have good wrestling, which I say. You know, but Michael Bisping, his ground game is okay. You know, he's okay off his back. He has pretty good submission defense. Um, and I think that if he watches the Chris Leben fight between him and Akiyama, Michael Bisping is going to try to go in there and try to submit Akiyama. I don't think he's going to be willing to stand. I don't get me wrong. I know he's going to be able willing to stand with Akiyama to a certain extent, but he's going to go in there and do that little stick and move style that he has, pitter patter. You know, like how he was trying to fight Dan Henderson, like he fought Chris Leben. And he's going to go in there. He's going to do a lot of sticking and moving on Akiyama, and Akiyama's just going to go there and take his head off. He's trying to take his head off. Let me say this: if Michael Bisping is not careful, he's gonna get knocked out again, you know, because I don't think Michael Bisping has the greatest jaw, the greatest chin in the world. To me, his jaw is very suspect. Even though Dan Henderson did hit him very, very hard, but even though I think his jaw is kind of suspect, you know, I think if you catch him with any, it doesn't even have to be the hardest shot in the world. If you catch him good enough on the chin, he's going to sleep. So my biggest fight is Dan Henderson. I mean, sorry about that. Is actually Michael Bisping outworking Akiyama, sticking and moving on him. You know, using his jab, moving all around, circles all over the ring, and then at some point, you know, trying to get this fight to the ground, or even pull guard at some point, you know. And I just see him probably submitting Akiyama. You know, maybe submitting him. I know I'm going to go out on a limb. I know Michael Bisping hasn't really submitted anybody, but I think he's going to submit Akiyama. And if he doesn't, Akiyama's going to gas in maybe the end of the second round, or you know, in the beginning of the third round, and Michael Bisping is going to be able to take advantage of that, and he's going to get a TKO stoppage. But either way, Michael Bisping is going to win this fight. This fight could go any way. I give the edge to Akiyama, but something in my heart, my mind is telling me that Michael Bisping is going to put it off, just because I just think that Akiyama is somewhere he kind of gets lost in the fight. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. You know, I question his heart at times. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. This fight could go either way. It's a very hard pick. I really don't know who to pick, but my mind is telling me to go more toward Michael Bisping. So that's it. You guys let me know. It's going to be a hell of a card. You guys enjoy it. Until next time, Afro Man, MMA Blaze, MMA Genius, signing off. Hey, man, you guys be cool, man. Yeah.